Welcome, class. So today we're tackling a conflict you probably think you know, the 1982 Falklands War. But we're going to flip the script. We're looking at this whole thing not from London, but from Buenos Aires. We're going to try and understand the thinking, the huge miscalculations, and most importantly, the human cost from a perspective that, let's be honest, often gets left out of the story.
And I want to start right here. Not with the politics, not with grand strategy, but on the ground. Just try to picture this for a second. It's raw, it's cold. For these young guys, this wasn't some abstract political chess move. It was a real, damp, creeping dread, thousands of miles from home, just waiting for a storm they had no idea if they could survive. This is really where the story has to begin.
So, to even begin to understand why those soldiers were there in the first place, we have to look at what was happening inside Argentina. Why invade? Well, the answer isn't simple, and it starts with a nation that was truly in crisis.
Okay, let's break this down. At this time, Argentina was not a democracy. It was run by a military junta, a committee of generals, really. And their hold on power was, to put it mildly, shaky. The economy was in a nosedive. We're talking a deep recession. And they were facing some serious heat from their own people. They needed something, anything, to change the conversation. And they needed it to be big.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because you see this huge disconnect. For the junta, the invasion was a cold, calculated political move. It was a way to rally a divided country and make everyone forget about the failing economy. But for the young guys they sent to do the fighting, it was something else entirely. It was about this intense, powerful national pride, this deeply held belief that they were taking back land that was theirs.
So let's get into the decision to invade. From the junta's point of view, this was this grand, patriotic gamble that they just couldn't lose. But as we're about to see, the whole thing was built on a foundation of massive, critical mistakes.
Here was their thinking, pretty much laid bare. They looked across the ocean at Great Britain, which was also dealing with its own recession, and they made a fatal assumption, that Britain was just too weak, too distracted, or too far away to do anything about it. They figured they could just grab the islands, and the British would just have to lump it. As you can see, what actually happened was, well, something very different.
And that right there, that was the heart of the miscalculation. They completely misread the political situation in the UK, and they absolutely underestimated the iron will of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. They were expecting a strongly worded letter. What they got was the entire Royal Navy sailing their way.
Okay, let's dive into this next part, because now we're shifting our focus away from the strategic blunders being made in a war room in Buenos Aires and back to the very human cost of that gamble. Back to the freezing, brutal reality for those soldiers on the islands.
Yeah, like we were saying, these weren't grizzled professional soldiers for the most part. They were kids, conscripts. And when they first landed, they were absolutely running on pure patriotism. They truly believed they were on a historic mission to reclaim the Malvinas. And they were ready to put up one heck of a fight for what they saw as their home soil.
But you know what? That patriotic fire gets extinguished pretty fast when it runs up against the brutal reality of modern war. That creeping sense of dread turned into outright shock and terror when they realized they were facing one of the most advanced navies on the planet. They were outgunned, they were undersupplied, and the technological gap was just impossible to overcome.
So let's be really clear about this. For the guys on the ground, this wasn't some grand strategic game. It was a nightmare. It was the terrifying whistle of incoming jets and the sinking realization that you are on the wrong end of a professional, high-tech military machine. Their experience was one of fear, shock, and for many, trauma that would last a lifetime.
The actual fighting only lasted 74 days, a little over 2 months. But the political shockwaves, they were massive. And as we're about to see, the consequences for the leaders of both countries could not have been more different. It's truly a tale of two fates.
I mean, just look at this. It's a perfect mirror image of itself. You can't make it up. For one leader, the war brings this incredible, decisive victory that cements her power for years to come. And for the other, humiliating defeat and complete political annihilation.
For Margaret Thatcher and the UK, this victory was an unbelievable political gift. It tapped into this deep, nostalgic pride, this feeling that the old British lion could still roar. And that massive wave of patriotism, it carried her to a landslide re-election the very next year.
But in Argentina, wow, the exact opposite happened. The defeat wasn't just a military loss.
It was a profound national humiliation that completely destroyed any credibility the ruling junta had left. The very gamble they took to save their regime ended up being the thing that brought it crashing down. And that, ultimately, is what opened the door for democracy to return.
Okay, so for our last section, let's pull the lens back one last time. It was a short, brutal war. But what's the lasting impact? What's the shadow that this conflict still casts all these decades later?
Well, in Argentina, the war's not remembered with any sense of glory. Not at all. It's seen as a national tragedy. It serves as this powerful, somber, cautionary tale about how easily patriotic fervor, especially when it's manipulated by a desperate government, can lead directly to disaster.
And this right here just perfectly captures that divided memory. To this very day, these two nations look back at the exact same 74 days and see two completely different things. In the UK, it's often remembered as a clear-cut triumph. In Argentina, it's a painful, somber memory, even though the national claim to the Malvinas is still a core part of their political identity. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. When political leaders decide to roll the dice and they bet everything on national pride to get what they want, we have to ask ourselves, who really pays the bill for that gamble? Is it the leaders in their warm offices, or is it the young soldiers shivering in a trench? It's a question that's worth asking long after the shooting stops.